Love, love, go till I hear the breath of the Spirit flowing in me. Hello, welcome to Spirit of Life. My name is Geraldine, your host, and our guest is Alyssa, Agius. I'd like you again to share about your faith story and how you came to be a strong believer.
No worries. So I was brought up in a Catholic family. I guess the typical Catholic family that, you know, you get sent to a Catholic primary school, high school. I did all of my sacraments. We maybe went to Mass Christmas and Easter growing up. My grandparents have still kept their faith and would always encourage us to still do that. I remember when I was being looked after by my grandmother, she would often pray the rosary with us when we were kids. And then we sort of left it. And then at high school, we never really went to Mass anymore. And I guess I had the opportunity to go to World Youth Day in Year 12. I was a school leader. And I remember this girl came to our school and she spoke about how wonderful her experience was in Cologne in Germany a few years previous to that. And I thought, I really want to go. Something always drew me to that. And when I went to Sydney, it was incredible. I just saw the church on a universal level. Didn't really have a big lightning bolt Jesus moment there, but I just remember thinking, this is a really great and positive environment.
Yeah.
And I'd love to do this again, maybe at an international level.
Wow. And what happens at World Youth Day?
Sure. So at World Youth Day, young Catholics from all around the world gather together in the one place to learn about their faith, to celebrate the faith. The Pope often joins for a final Mass. There's a beautiful night vigil with adoration of the Blessed Sacrament. There's workshops, guest speakers, music, and the streets are just filled with joy. And so it's a very joyful week.
Wow. And how many people do they get at the World Youth Day?
It ranges depending on the location. So the Australian one that I went to was 500,000 people. That's actually relatively small in comparison to the ones around the world. So I later on went to Spain and that was 1.5 million people.
Wow.
So that was again just like tripled in size. And that the Spain World Youth Day is where I made the decision to take my faith seriously.
Wow.
And I remember saying to myself, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this with everything that I have. I'm not going to do this by half. And so that's when my life started to change.
Yeah.
And then I went to World Youth Day in Panama literally a year ago today.
Wow.
And that was another 1.5 million people.
That's amazing. And what did you experience that drew you? What about, was it God, you know?
Sure.
Yeah.
So there was never really a lightning bolt moment. And it's funny, I always used to think if someone's going to ask me, I'd hear people give their testimonies. I thought, I haven't got that experience. Like maybe it's not working for me. That's why I literally used to think that. But when I look back over that time, I could see God just drawing me closer to Him in small little ways. So I guess the moment that I made that decision, I remember hearing a talk by Jason and Kristalina Everett, who are Catholic speakers from America. And I just remember thinking I could really relate to what they were saying, and I thought, this is for me. So I remember going to confession, and it was the first time I'd done that since I was in grade 3, I think. So, you know, a good 15 years later. World Youth Day was huge.
What did you like about the message they gave you? What kind of message did they give you that really reached you?
They were talking about relationships and, there were a few things. But, the main thing was relationships and how we could glorify God in that.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. And because of that, you were also a musician at the time, weren't you?
Yes. So that's a very funny story. So I was a musician, but I kept that completely on one side of my life and I kept faith on the other side, and the two did not coincide. I was, I'm a full-time musician in the secular industry, so I do gigs in pubs, clubs, weddings, corporate functions, funerals, a whole bunch of different places. And because our industry is so secular, I always had this fear that if people knew that I was so into my faith, that I wouldn't get work, or, you know, I would be judged for that, and I was always going through this inner battle. But at the same time, I didn't really tell anyone in, like, you know, a few of my close faith friends knew, but I didn't really go parading around that I was a musician, because I was just like, oh, I'm so involved in this industry that is so not full of faith often. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So I kept the two very, very separate, and yeah, it wasn't till I kind of put the two together that I really experienced a growth in my faith. You could say I was very lukewarm up until that point.
And what instrument do you play?
Yep, so I play piano. That's my main instrument. Started that when I was 5. And then I got really bored of the piano when I was 15, and so I taught myself a little bit of guitar. And I was always interested in singing, so from a young age, primary school, I used to get involved in the choirs and school production. I was that kid who did everything at school.
Singing,
that was me. Yeah.
Yeah, and what range of your voice?
Oh, I think I've got a low voice. Like, I can go low. I used to think I had a man voice. It's very funny. But over the years, as you know, I've done more gigs, and it's higher, and it depends on the context. Like, I think I can change my voice to sound like what it needs to sound like, depending where I am.
Have you tried operatic?
No, I don't think I would be good at that.
But you've tried all the other styles, R&B,
yeah, I love
jazz,
pop, and not so much jazz, but a little bit of R&B. But pop is probably my favourite.
Yeah. Oh wow. And do you dance?
Not really. I did dancing when I was a kid, and I can. If someone showed me what to do, I can follow along. I've got pretty good coordination, so I can do that.
Oh, good.
But it's not something that I set out to do myself.
On that note, we'll go for a break.
No worries.
You've been watching Spirit of Life. Stay with us, and we'll be back after the break. Welcome back to Spirit of Life. My name is Geraldine Lee, your host, and our guest is Alyssa, Agius. Welcome back.
Thanks.
So, how do you combine music with your faith?
This is a very funny question. Someone asked me this in 2017 at the Australian Catholic Youth Festival. And this was a point in my life where I was really struggling with the fact that I was keeping everything very separate. And I remember freezing and just not knowing how to answer the question. And so it's very funny that you've begun with that question, because everything has changed since then. After that interview, I made the decision when I came back from that festival that something had to change. So I started to go to daily mass and really just up my prayer life a little bit. And I started to get involved in singing with different youth bands. So I sing with Genevieve Bryant, and that gave me the opportunity to sing at these festivals. And then I met, through a series of different events, I met one of my best friends. Her name was Georgia Byrne, and we began a duo. You could call us a pop duo, but we're both Catholic women. We began a pop duo for a little bit of fun, and it was exactly around the time of this, a year ago today, we released our debut single called Set Fire. We travelled to Panama World Youth Day, where we sang with Father Rob Galea, and so we got to sing to crowds of 40,000 people, which was incredible. And after releasing that song for a little bit of fun, it actually went extremely well. And now we put a lot of our energy into this project. Our music is played on radio stations all around the country. We're often doing interviews with them, doing live performances. We just played at the Australian Catholic Youth Festival in Perth, and I totally feel like I've found my vocation in that.
Wow.
So I'm able to combine everything I've learned in my full-time music career and everything about my faith. The two have just like sparked together, and it's just left me very fulfilled.
That's fantastic. It's a great, and it's a great witness that you can combine the both.
Yeah.
Yeah. And do you find that there are challenges with that?
Most definitely. I mean, this is not for me to say that I've got it all figured out, because I still don't, and I still struggle with that. I came to a point where I was so caught up in the full-time music world that I was doing, but I was just really struggling with the fact that I was living this double life. I used to say to myself, Alyssa, you're just this good little Catholic during the week because you're going to Mass and, you're saying your prayers and doing all of that, but on the weekend you're out partying with everybody. And I came to this point where I wanted to give it up. I thought I was not happy anymore. And after speaking with a couple of different priests, they really helped to change my perspective on that. And I learned that even in my secular music platform, because that's really what it is,
Yes.
I can still bring God into that place. So I'm often praying before gigs, God, how can I serve you tonight? How can I bring you to these people?
Yes.
And it's been fantastic. This project with my friend Georgia has sparked so many conversations with people from our industry, just general public, and it's really opened up those doors for us to talk about what God's done for us.
Yes, and with your work, how do you support yourself?
Spiritually?
Yes.
So I think for a long time when I started to go to daily Mass, I thought nothing was happening. Like, it was a number of months, maybe even a year before things started to really happen. And I realised that part of my routine, so daily Mass and the rosary and praying to St. Michael for protection, all those, and also adding in exercise as well, just for my mental health, that daily routine has really given me that structure so that when things get a little bit difficult, like, they're my pillars.
And with your faith, do you find that there is, like, sometimes what they call spiritual warfare, where you feel like you're doing good, but then something negative occurs, like, after? Or
I never used to think spiritual warfare was a thing. I used to think it was a bit crazy. But it wasn't until I started to really become on fire for my faith through my music, and Georgia as well, in our project, the things we've had to endure, I guess, we never would have expected we would have had to endure.
Yes.
And it's really taught me that, it's kind of a compliment in a sense, because it means, you are doing God's will for your life, and you're bringing other people to God. It's a nice thought in some senses.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's totally a real thing, and we need to make sure that our prayer lives are strong and that we have other people praying for us, so that we can, really fulfill this mission, because that we feel so called to do it. And I think I was saying to you before, it would be, someone else has said this to me, I can't remember who, but it would be easier if we didn't believe and we didn't have this call. But now that we have this, it's like we don't feel at peace unless we're out there doing what we feel God has called us to do.
Yes. And also, you've had feedback of people who've been touched by your music?
We've had so many stories, and it's really beautiful. And so it's funny, whenever we get those messages, they kind of, it's all worth it. All the struggle is worth it. And I always say to Georgia, even if we touch one person, the struggle is worth it.
Yeah. And if people are interested in your music, do they go on YouTube or websites?
Yeah, we're all over the social media. So our band is called The Saga. So you can find us on YouTube if you type in The Saga. We're also on Instagram, Facebook. We've got a website, thesaga.com.au, I believe it is. So many ways to get in touch.
Yeah, I was on Light FM the other day, and I heard you all singing, and I go, I know those people, they're my friends.
That makes me laugh so much, because I've listened to that station for 10 years, and I never would have thought that I would be on that station.
Yeah. On that note, we'll go for a break.
No worries.
You've been watching Spirit of Life. Stay with us, and we'll be back after the break. Hello, welcome back to Spirit of Life. My name is Geraldine Lee, your host, and our guest is Alyssa Agius. Welcome back,
Thanks,
Alyssa.
Geraldine.
Yeah, we were talking about your music, how it brings many good messages. What are some of the messages that you like to bring across?
Yeah, we generally like to keep things pretty positive, especially coming from a secular music background. It's funny, I'm on cruise control so much of the time that I don't even realise what I'm singing about, and you try and find a song that's positive to sing at a school or to sing at a church event, and there's really nothing to choose from. So I guess Georgia and I tried to change that a little bit and speak to
Yes.
experiences that young people are going through. In the 3 songs that we've released, I can tell you about the messages of those. So the first one, which was called Set Fire, we drew upon a quote from St. Catherine of Siena that says, when you become who you're meant to be, you will set the world on fire. And we talk about that when we know that we're loved by God, there's nothing that we really can't do. And when we find that passion that we have, we can set the world on fire. Not literally, but set the world on fire in a beautiful way.
That's
Then, from messages after we received from that song, from a whole range of different people, a lot of people opened up to us about struggles they were facing in terms of, comparing themselves to others and never feeling good enough. So we channeled that into our second single, which was Fearless, which spoke about that, we're all unique, and we didn't say it in these words exactly, but, God's got an individual purpose for each and every one of us.
Wow.
So there's no need for us to compare ourselves to others, and we are enough just as we are.
That's powerful.
It was a very powerful message, and it's funny, we write and sing these songs, and then sometimes Georgia and I will find ourselves in positions where we need to hear those messages ourselves.
Yes.
So I feel like God's working there as well. And then our latest single, Lonely One, is about, everyone goes through struggles, and sometimes you feel like you're alone in those struggles, but, you're never alone. Like, there's not only your friends and your family around there to support you, we also have a God that is there with us every step of the way.
Yeah, no, it's true because, when people are married, they have someone sleeping next to them, but they still feel all alone because I suppose no one can know exactly how you're feeling, how you're thinking. But
Exactly. What I've learnt this year is communication is paramount in every situation. That's why they say it's one of those pillars of a good marriage or any good relationship, and it's the same with God as well.
yes, it's very important, I think, in today's society to share, to tell people how you're feeling, because there are people who care.
Yes.
Especially God.
Yes.
And those who have faith.
Yes.
Yeah, no, it's a wonderful, positive thing that you're bringing to a lot of young people. Who do you reach? What kind of age group?
I think it reaches all ages. We've got a lot of fans who are in high school, and we have a lot of even parents saying that they love our music because it's positive for their teens to listen to. But then, we've got a lot of adults who are interested in our music as well. So it's a broad range of people. I guess we aim it at anyone who wants to hear it.
Yeah. And do you liaise in only the Catholic Church, or do you reach out to most churches?
No, this is the most beautiful thing about this project that I've had with Georgia is we're very interdenominational with who we work with. Like our team is a bunch of different people, not only Catholics. We've had a wonderful support from the Catholic community, but we've had a Baptist pastor who's given us lots of advice.
Oh, good.
Our producer is also a Christian.
Yeah.
And it's funny, when we've gone for interviews at radio stations, I'll never forget this. I was always a little bit scared to say that I was a Catholic because I thought there was all this tension. But the radio announcer said, no, girls, you're bridging that gap,
wow.
especially in the Christian music industry. And that's been such a beautiful thing to hear. And I guess we're just trying to, bridge that gap, not only between the interdenominational world of Christianity, but also in terms of our faith and our secular.
That's wonderful because I think that was Christ's message. May they all be one.
Yes.
And that unity, and love, because united we stand, divided we fall.
Exactly.
So that's a really beautiful message to bring to to the world. What would you say to young budding, musicians, especially Christian musicians? What would you say to them?
I would say take every opportunity that is presented with you. There is no gig that is too small or no gig that is too big. I think when I was performing at ACYF just a couple of months ago to a whole bunch of 10,000 people, I remember looking at the sea of people and I had this moment in myself where I thought, wow, this was just beyond my wildest dreams. I never would have expected that I would be on this stage, because 2 years prior, I was in the audience going through this inner battle of how I could share my faith in my music. And I feel like, especially with Georgia and myself, that, God, we're walking examples of that classic line that God's plans are better for you than yourself. So my advice to young musicians is take on every opportunity, but also foster your own faith, like really have that personal relationship with Jesus and let him be the one to guide you, because his plans are better for you than your own.
It's been great to have you, and I wish you all the best.
Thanks so much.
God bless you and all your work.
Thank you, and you too.
You've been watching Spirit of Life. Join us next week. Goodbye and God bless you.